This is Golden Years, a roadmap to navigate retirement with Mark Cordner, the podcast.
I want to jump right to it, Mark. Calculating how much to withdraw from a retirement portfolio. Apparently, this spurs a lot of debate here. Should it be 2%? The industry recommended 4%. Or should it be more? Well, Manisha Thakur is an author of the book Money Zen, The Secret to Finding Your Enough. And she recently tells Morningstar there's something else to consider.
The order of returns when you retire make a huge difference. If you retire into a bull market, you're in great shape. If you retire into a bear market and you're pulling out money when assets are depressed, it can really shake up the statistical odds of not outliving your money. And so I encourage people to be really strategic about how they're going to access the money they need for the first 5 years. And if you're conservative like me, the first 10 years, so that you do not have to sell depressed assets in order to execute your retirement plan.
You know, when you map out a retirement plan, I mean, here's the deal. I wish we all had a crystal ball. Your job would certainly be easier, Mark, if we knew, hey, in 10, 20 years, we're going to have this kind of market or that kind of market, or returns will be X, Y, or Z. But listen, we don't have that. So, Mark, when you sit down with folks, how far ahead do you look when it comes to calculating withdrawals so that we can avoid the number one fear of running out of money?
Well, we look over their lifespan, and then we address it with a two-tiered approach. One is assured income stream, such as Social Security, perhaps annuity income that's guaranteed that they can't outlive it. And then we have money in the market that can be there to outpace inflation, and we can layer on additional income streams over time. But I'd like to go back to what she said there. What she was referencing is what we call sequence of return risk, and she's exactly right. This is a concept that we discovered through the academic community after the 2008 Great Recession. And it basically was exactly what she said. If you retire when the market is down, then it can have an accelerating effect on the depletion of your assets. And so we don't want to be withdrawing money from variable accounts when the market's down. But I would slightly disagree with her in the sense that these are issues we can deal with well in advance. We teach people who come to our classes that at least 5 years prior, we need to be setting up what we call a two-pocket approach, where some of our money is completely out of the market. It's in principal protected accounts. Sometimes that's fixed or fixed index annuities, but not always. But it's in principal protected accounts where we can generate money or reach into that pocket when the market's down. And then when the market's up, that's when we reach into the market-based accounts. So there's strategic ways we can respond to this. If we have more than one pocket is the key point. We need to have at least two pockets, one that's out of the market. And then we don't have to stress about the timing of things, because the simple truth is we can't control what's happening in the world economy. So we need to have strategies in place that allow us to respond to whatever life brings. And some of that's having a short-term emergency saving account. Some of it is having income based upon the next 5 years projection. And then the rest needs to be working to outpace inflation so that we can continually layer on additional streams of income so that we never run short. So I can think of many scenarios here. We talk about this 4% rule in our class, this idea that was introduced in 1994 by William Bengen, that we can take 4% out of our investment accounts and never run out of money. That's been disproved. He had a number of assumptions that have not proven correct. The academics have said if you're dealing with stock market-based accounts, you probably should not take more than 2.5% to 3%. And I point this out because just in the last month or two, there's been an interesting contest playing out on the internet. On the one hand, Dave Ramsey's telling people you can take 10% out of your accounts and never run out because the market will always earn 10%. Well, that's incredibly dangerous talk, and I would lose my license if I said such things, frankly, because the market is not consistently earning 10%. That's an average.
Mm-hmm.
Susie Orman, on the other hand, has said, don't you dare pull 4% out. She's saying you pull only what you need. Now, she's probably the other extreme in that statement, and maybe easier for her to say when she has millions, and most of our clients don't have millions. But as a general rule, we would say 2.5% to 3%. And I point this out because I've had people come into me who insist on, after hearing this Dave Ramsey type stuff, that they should be able to pull 10% out of their accounts. And when we run the illustrations for them, they see that they run out of money within a matter of 10 to 15 years. And so the question becomes, are you truly concerned about having income for life, income you can't outlive? Because if you are, you have to think differently. And so we can't take these one-size-fits-all kind of statements from media gurus and assume that they will always be accurate in our own lives. We want to set up guaranteed income streams. We want to set some money up to outpace inflation, and every person's situation is different. I love the title of her book, by the way, The Secret to Finding Your Enough, because that's frankly the biggest challenge for most Americans is how much is enough?
The new Social Security cost of living adjustment, it's also called COLA, if you've heard of that, is in. And beneficiaries, they'll receive 2.5% more in 2025, but it's not as much as it actually was last year. The increase for this year is 3.2, and it was actually 8.7 in 2023. So cooling inflation is apparently responsible for the lowering hike here. But, tell that to a senior who is struggling to pay for basic needs. I'm talking groceries, gas, those kind of things. Mark, what's one way that you can help take care of all of this ahead of time?
Well, that's the key, ahead of time. We need to meet well in advance and help people understand that Social Security should not be their primary source of income. Historically, increases have been under 3%, and there have been years when there have been no increases. And so we cannot depend on Social Security as a primary source of income, period. So we need to potentially look at ways to save money. We need to, prior to retirement, certainly, and then ways to reduce expenses in retirement. We also need to look at all assets. Sometimes that means looking at things like home equity. So there's lots of options, but the key is sooner than later. Let's sit down and look at what your income streams are going to be. Let's not plan on Social Security being everything to you, because it can't be. It just can't be that.
Yeah, it's just not sustainable. I mean, really, just to rely on that one stream of income. And, if it has something to do with the COLA reduction or even the fact that, listen, we've been talking about this. It's been around for years. A lot of folks saying that the Social Security overall is going to be reduced, right? This big pile of money that we've been living off of, paying into all the things, is going to eventually decrease. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's going to have to as a mathematical certainty. We had the same problem, though, in 1983, and as always, the politicians came together finally, but only in the very last minutes before midnight, as it were. And we remember that Tip O'Neill and Ronald Reagan came together, had a great compromise. They changed Social Security back then. They delayed benefits from 65 to 67, progressively, and they also began to tax Social Security. So there's things like that they can do within the next 10 years to fix these problems. The solutions are not rocket science. The solutions are not as difficult as people would make out. It's the political will to make the change that is so hard. And so I'm personally confident that they will make the change, but they're going to come kicking and screaming to the table in the final hours. And we'll see that happen here in the next 10 years. Meanwhile, we need to plan as if there would be a reduction because, again, there's no guarantees. And we need to do what we can do to take responsibility for our own lives and our own future. And so if folks are anxious about this, let's have them come in. Just come on in. It's a complimentary review. We'll do a free Social Security analysis. We'll talk you through your options there, show you how to integrate that with other forms of assured income you can't outlive, and then look at your investments and see, are there ways to make that more certain? There's no cost to that, analysis. So come in and visit with us. We'll take the pressure off you.
There are a variety of reasons why some retirement savers, they just do not consider annuities. For instance, they might think that they're just too complicated, which, by the way, is why you need somebody like Mark to sit down and help you get through all the details. But also, some of them fear that the insurance company that they buy an annuity from could just go out of business. Then they're going to lose all their money. Mark, does that last concern really, hold some water, some truth there?
Oh, this is a great topic, but no, I would say no, I'm not concerned about the insurance companies going under. If you understand how insurance companies are structured, and I'm speaking specifically of life insurance companies, then we realize that they're under legal reserve requirements, which basically means they have to have more in reserve, in the vault, as it were, than they have promised out. And as a general rule, for every $100 promised out, an insurance company has a minimum of 104. Now, I worked with the company I started with 32 years ago. They got up to $132 in reserves for every 100 they had promised out. Conversely, banks keep about $10 in reserve for every 100 they have promised out. And that's why there's this historical fear of a run on the bank. They literally lend out more than they have. It's called fractional reserve lending. And so that's why banks have to have federal deposit insurance to protect people. Insurance companies are structured differently. It is possible an insurance company could go under, but it's very unlikely because typically when they get into difficulty, other companies kind of swoop in, buy them up, and keep the promises that have been made to the policyholders. And so it's not a concern that I have. But with that said, we only work with A-rated companies. We're selective about who we offer if people need insurance, and that's an if. If they need insurance, if an annuity, for example, is appropriate for them, then we're going to be very selective because we don't work for those insurance companies. We work for the client. And you talked about the roadmap heading forward. One of the biggest potholes on the road is misinformation, and there's a ton of misinformation out there about annuities. I had a guy come in about 2 weeks ago, really, really nice couple. He's cowboy type, and he had certain ideas about insurance products. And so I didn't use the term annuity. I just started talking about certain benefits. And he said, yeah, I want that. And I said, well, are you sure you want that if we use the name annuity on the application? And he looked at me because it's like a drill. I can say I hate drills, but I really like the clean holes that they make. At the end of the day, we need to not get caught up in the name of something. We need to get caught up in what it does for us. And the truth is that most people that criticize annuities, there's a ton of misinformation out there from competitors, Fisher Investments of the world, who are telling people that annuities are evil. And I always say that that's, anyone who tells you that a particular type of vehicle is bad is obviously selling an alternative type vehicle, because there's a reason that pickups were created. There's a reason that vans were created. There's a reason sedans were created, and so on. So don't criticize a boat for not being a plane. Insurance and annuities can be very safe and may be a wonderful addition to your particular retirement plan. For example, I spoke about this man who came in a couple of weeks ago with his wife. We talked about the benefits, such as the fact that an annuity can create income that you can never outlive. Well, his new wife absolutely perked up when she heard that. And the more we talked about it, the more he perked up and liked the idea. And then when we put the name on it, he got this funny little grin on his face and said, okay, kind of thing. So he and his wife are ready to proceed. But I always say, come visit with us, come learn about the options. You don't want to work with a general contractor who won't make all available tools available to himself. If anyone tells me they're not going to work with a saw or a drill, then that's not the general contractor I want. I want someone who has the option of using whatever tool is necessary to build the dream home that I've asked them to construct. If you don't know what you don't know, as they say, come in and talk to those who know.
Now, Mark, I talk about this all the time. You've been doing this for decades. You've been around through when the market's been up, when it's been down, during presidential elections. You are highly educated in this area, continuously educating yourself and continuously educating the public, holding all these different free educational workshops and whatnot. But to those that are still skeptical, thinking, all right, well, what can this guy bring to the table? What would you say is the value that you bring when you sit across the table from somebody that says, all right, Mark, here's my whole life savings. Let's put this into retirement.
Yeah, that's a great question because, we don't put ourselves out there as quote unquote wealth managers who are simply trying to get you 1 or 2% greater rate of return. That's not who we are. I'm not the guy who's going to call you with some hot stock market tip. We are planners. Longevity planners really is the best title for us because we're helping people prepare for an unknown period of time in the future and making a finite amount of money last. So there's a variety of services that we provide that go beyond just the investments themselves. I mean, one of them is basically behavioral consulting, talking people off the cliff when they get bad information or they have a bad event come into their life. That's a big part of the service. Helping people frame their expectations more realistically, what truly is possible. We're a sounding board for people. Definitely, we're helping them create income plans. We're helping them create healthcare plans. We're helping them create investment plans. We're helping them create home equity management plans. We're helping them create estate plans. And so there's a lot of conversations that have to go on over an extended period of time to help people get clarity as to what they want their money to do for them. Remember, money is just fuel. Life is not about money. Money has no value beyond what it does to fuel us towards our end destination, our goals. And so that's where we're able to help people. It's far beyond just choosing an appropriate investment. That's not the hard part, actually. The hard part is clarifying where do you want to go and how do you want to get there. Last thing that should be discussed by any kind of travel planner is what kind of vehicle you're going to use, a boat, a plane, or car. That will become obvious once the destination and the travel path is chosen. So we really need to focus on the destination and the travel path. And then the vehicles, the financial vehicles or products that we utilize, that's the very last step of the equation. Yeah, so it really goes beyond quote unquote wealth management. At the end of the day, it really doesn't matter if I get you a 1 or 2% greater rate of return, and we're pretty confident we can. But it really doesn't matter if I do that and then have all that money go down the toilet because we didn't do any kind of long-term care planning. For example, there are absolute potholes in the road that we're all going to experience the longer we live. If we're not focusing on those things, if we're simply looking for what's the best rate of return, then we're not doing you a service. And I've lost clients over this, or potential clients. I've had people come in and their sole question to me is, what rate of return are you going to give me? And it's the absolute wrong conversation to have. And we have to politely find a way to part ways, because if they can't hear beyond that, then they're missing the whole planning conversation that needs to be had. It's not about the rate of return. Rates of return are important, extremely important, but that is not what the conversation should be about. It should be about the destination. Where do you want to go? What kind of experiences do you want to have in life? And how are we going to have dependable income? Emphasis on dependable income that we can't outlive to get us there. How do we protect it from Uncle Sam? How do we protect it from healthcare costs? Those are the kind of conversations that we really should be having. So it's far beyond just investment management. So if that's a new conversation or a new idea to people, come visit with us, frankly, because you'll see very quickly in that first conversation with us that we're taking a much more expansive view of what needs to be considered.
I want to talk about, America. We're always known as, let's go get the American dream, right? Well, the American dream is going to cost you. It's going to cost you big. There was a new report by Investopedia. They found that it comes to $4.4 million. Here's the breakdown for you. Retirement, about $1.6 million. Homeownership, $930,000. Raising 2 kids, $832,000. Owning new cars, $811,000. And then, of course, you have those other expenses, weddings, pets, vacations, coming out to just $268,000. You add all of that up, folks, it can be daunting, and there's a lot going on there. So when it comes to retirement alone, that makes up to 40% of the American dream. So let's say that you put a plan in place, you're accounting for all these things, home ownership, kids, et cetera, the vacations. How often, Mark, should we do a little financial check-in with our spending plan?
Oh, I would say, if not quarterly, at least semi-annually, and it needs to be a whole household kind of conversation in the sense that if it's a married couple, they both really need to be on the same page. Now, with that said, I don't like these type of reports. I don't even like citing them, because when we start talking about numbers that big, it freaks people out, and they often become paralyzed just by fear. The numbers are so large. The truth is, yes, we have a lot of money that flows through our hands over the course of our working lifetime and over the potential 1, 2, 3, 4 decades of retirement. And so we do need to be prepared for that. That's why we need to have guaranteed income streams to help carry us through. But we don't need to freak out, because a size 10 shoe or a size 10 expenditure is not the same for everyone. Some people live very modestly who could afford to live much larger. Unfortunately, most Americans live much larger than their income should permit, but we need to have clarity on that. And so, yes, as couples, we need to be meeting at least, if not quarterly, at least semi-annually, talking through these things. And I would say with a financial advisor who can be a sounding board for you. One of the great benefits I bring to people is the fact that I've met with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people over the last 32 years. And so all the, academic training aside, you get a certain practical kind of street understanding, street wisdom, as it were, as to how things can play out for couples. Yeah, have those conversations within your family. That's most important. And then bring the financial advisor in, and we'll do it for you complimentary. So just come visit with us.
Investment advisory services offered through Golden Years Financial LLC, a registered investment advisory firm. Insurance is offered through Golden Years Insurance Services. These firms do not provide legal or tax advice. Consult your own legal and tax advisors before taking actions that may have tax implications. Investing in securities involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Insurance contracts' principal protection is based on the claim-paying ability of the respective insurer. None of the information contained on this website shall constitute an offer to sell or solicit to buy a security or insurance product. The information and opinions contained on this site or requested from this site are provided by third parties believed to be reliable, but accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed. They are provided for informational purposes only and are not a solicitation to buy or sell any of the products mentioned. Any media logos and or trademarks contained herein are the property of their respective owners, and no endorsement by those owners of Mark Cordner, Golden Years Financial, or Golden Years Insurance is stated or implied.